Welcome to my latest video. The subject is the architecture of creation, explained simply. What follows is a map, the first in a short series, laying out one picture of how creation and our reality are architected and constructed, and why we are here to understand our role, to witness, and to participate in all of it. Let me say plainly what this is. It is a framework, a proposal, a way of seeing, and thereby of understanding. It takes the hard findings of physics seriously and accounts for them. It takes in what we know and suspect about cosmology. It has room for theology as well, and for much more. Think of it as an all-encompassing universal framework built to offer a unified explanation of creation. It takes those findings, each one of them, and asks what they might mean if they are all faces of one thing. It is not consensus science, and it does not pretend to be. You are not asked to believe, only to hear me out, and then to decide for yourself whether it holds something of value for you. You are invited to weigh it. So hold it lightly and join me. We begin where every real inquiry begins, with a question. Let's begin with the oldest question there is. Why is there something rather than nothing at all? And for what purpose? And then a second question, quieter and stranger. Why is there anyone here to ask it? Science has been spectacularly good at describing how things behave and almost silent on why any of it exists or why it should be experienced by anyone at all. This framework begins with a wager that you cannot finish answering the how until you take the why seriously, and that those two questions, followed far enough, are really the same question, two facets of one whole. The ordinary assumption runs like this. The universe, our reality, began as matter and energy, dead, non-biological matter. For billions of years, nothing was awake, and then by some process or chance, a little of that matter folded itself and eventually evolved into intelligence, into brains. And then, like a light switch, consciousness flickered on, late and lucky, a side effect of the evolutionary and probability machinery. This framework proposes an interesting alternative, the reverse. Consciousness does not arrive at the end. It was there at the beginning, the source, not the product. What is rare and hard-won is not consciousness itself, but a physical system organized well enough to reach it. Think of a radio. The radio does not compose the music. The broadcast is already in the air, whether or not anything is tuned to it. The radio is simply built finely enough to pick it up. In this framework, the brain is the radio. Consciousness is the broadcast. Everything that follows is built on that single turn. To make that turn precise, this framework describes reality in three layers. At the top, layer one, the primordium, the timeless source of everything that was, is, or could be, pure consciousness and pure possibility, holding every outcome at once with no before and no after. Older traditions called it the Akashic record, a kind of cloud, the storage of all information, the library where nothing is ever lost. Place it at the top and hold it there. Everything else is rendered from it. Below it, layer two, the rendering interface, the process that takes all of that possibility and selects from it, turning what could be into what is. I borrow the word rendering on purpose. When a video game draws only the part of the world you are looking at that is rendering possibility made real at the moment it is needed. This framework's claim is that physics already studies this exact process in exhaustive detail and simply calls it quantum mechanics. And at the bottom, layer three, manifest reality, the finished rendered world we live in, space, matter, and the steady forward march of time. And here is the strange part. Time belongs to this layer only. The two layers above it are timeless. Rendering flows downward from source to world, and what we are, intelligence and awareness, is how the world reaches back up. Now step inside that bottom layer and ask the plain question, what is all this stuff? This framework's answer is that there is really only one thing, a single living medium it calls the resilient substrate, and it is vibrating. Not empty space, but a real medium, the way the surface of a pond is real. Even better, think of it as the ocean with life steaming within and currents carrying the energy. Picture a guitar string. Pluck it, and a pulse races down its length and is gone. That traveling, fading vibration, that is energy. But hold the string at the right places, and it settles into a standing pattern, ringing steadily in place, going nowhere. That standing, persisting vibration, that is the model for matter. Particles, atoms, your coffee cup, your own body, all of it is standing vibration in the substrate, the way a sustained note is standing vibration in a string. Matter and energy are not two different substances. They are one medium doing two different things, which is why the most famous equation in all of science is true and not a coincidence. E equals mc squared. Matter and energy are the same medium in two modes, and the equation is simply the exchange rate for converting one into the other. Lock vibration into standing matter or release it as traveling energy. The books always balance at a fixed rate. And that strange term, c squared, the speed of light multiplied by itself, this framework reads as something specific. The speed of light it proposes is really the rate at which reality is rendered, the universe's refresh rate. Every conversion has to cross the rendering boundary, and because the crossing is paid once on the way in and once on the way out, the rate shows up twice, which is why the equation squares it. C times C, a toll paid in both directions. Now, one of this framework's quieter and most beautiful ideas, between fleeting energy and frozen matter, there is a middle territory, patterns that are neither permanent nor gone in an instant, but sustained. Think of a candle flame. Its substance is replaced moment by moment. The material pours through it and away, and yet the flame holds its shape, enduring as a recognizable pattern. A living cell does the same. So does a thought, so does a held musical note or sustained attention or a long, clear tone in song. Life and consciousness do not happen in dead matter, and they do not happen in fleeting energy. They happen here, in this sustained middle ground, coherent enough to persist, dynamic enough to change. And this, as we will see, is the very territory where tuning in becomes possible. Because substrate matter and energy are all one medium, they are constantly converting into one another. Substrate becomes matter, matter releases into traveling energy and back again. And in time, all of it returns to the substrate, a closed economy running everywhere at every scale. And it stays balanced. This framework proposes that the universe holds a steady ratio, about 9 parts ordinary matter and energy to 91 parts hidden substrate, and that this ratio is set by a number nature uses everywhere, the golden ratio, the same proportion that arranges the seeds in a sunflower, curls a nautilus shell, and shapes the arms of a spiral galaxy. And what keeps those books balanced at the largest scale is the black hole, not only a cosmic drain, but a cosmic recycler, taking spent matter and energy back into raw substrate so the whole system never simply winds down. This framework reads the faint glow physicists call Hawking radiation as a visible hint of exactly that quiet work. Left alone, you might expect a universe to stay simple, to run down towards sameness. This one does the opposite. Particles build atoms. Atoms build chemistry. Chemistry builds life. Life builds nervous systems. Nervous systems build minds. A staircase of rising complexity. And this framework's claim is that the staircase is not an accident and not merely allowed, it is the point. Each step exists because it makes the next step possible. And the whole climb leads somewhere specific towards systems coherent enough to reach back up and tune in to the consciousness at the source. The universe builds complexity for a reason. It is building its way back to where it began. So we arrive back where we started, at consciousness. But now we come at it from below, from the world it rendered. A system coherent enough tunes in, like the radio finding the station. And this framework points to two places where that connection shows through. The first is entanglement. Two particles, once joined, stay perfectly coordinated no matter how far apart they are carried. Measure one, and the other answers at once with nothing passing between them. Physics confirms it and remains puzzled by it. This framework reads it plainly. Beneath the space of our world, the two were never separate at all. Their link runs through layer one, where there is no distance to cross. The famous observer effect belongs to this same channel, a quantum system waiting as open possibility until it is observed, and only then settling into one outcome. Observation is the rendering caught in the act. The second channel is vibrational connection. Everything is vibration in the substrate, and vibration can fall into resonance. When a system grows coherent enough, quiet, ordered, in tune, it resonates with the source the way a struck tuning fork sets a still one humming across the room. This is what tuning in means. And it is where the human practices live: deep attention, stillness, meditation, sustained song, not merely calming, but the connection itself being strengthened. This framework even points to the Earth's own faint electromagnetic tone, the Schumann resonance, as one of the ways the living world stays tuned to the source. Two channels, together they close the loop. And so the whole structure comes full circle. Consciousness at the top renders the world below. That world grows systems complex enough to reach back up. And through those systems, the source comes to experience the very creation it rendered. We are not spectators who arrived late, near the end of a long and mindless story. We are the mechanism by which the whole thing perceives itself from the inside. This is why the answer to why are we here is not an afterthought tacked on to physics. In this picture, it is the point of the structure. We exist to be the places where the source experiences its own creation. And the small, ordinary practices that quiet and focus a person, attention, stillness, song, are not only good for us, they are how lived experience flows back and enriches the source it came from. A recursive loop, reality coming a little more awake through one of its own creations. If this framework is even partly right, three things follow: that physics, philosophy, and the spiritual traditions are not rivals. They are describing one architecture from different doorways. That consciousness is not a fragile accident, but the source of things, and that our access to it may be the most significant thing about us. Let me end where I began, with honesty about what this is. This is a framework, a proposal. It takes every established finding of physics seriously and then offers a different picture of what those findings might mean. It is not consensus science. Where it touches firm ground, it can be tested and it may fail, and I would want to be the first to hear it. Where it reaches past the evidence, I have tried to say so plainly, and never to borrow the laboratory's authority for what is, in the end, a vision. You were never asked to believe it, only to listen and weigh it. The full case, the physics, the equations, the careful arguments, waits in the books, and in the rest of this series for whenever you want to go deeper. I feel it is worth considering, because if we can become comfortable with the why, and hopefully this helps explain that and what physics struggles with, then it is considerably easier to understand the what and how. That is it. The architecture of creation, plainly told, shared in the spirit of advancing human knowledge and experience. Thank you for walking through this with me. Please check out the next one in this series.